The war in Ukraine has reached a grim milestone. It has been a year since Russia launched its full-scale invasion. The world watched in horror as bombs rained down on Ukrainian cities. The images of destruction and suffering were heartbreaking. Millions of Ukrainians were forced to flee their homes. They became refugees in their own land or sought safety abroad. The conflict has had a profound impact on the entire world. It has shattered the illusion of peace in Europe. The war has also exacerbated existing global crises. Food and energy prices have soared. Supply chains have been disrupted. The conflict has also tested the unity of the international community. Despite the immense challenges, the Ukrainian people have shown extraordinary resilience. They have bravely defended their country against Russian aggression. Citizens took up arms to fight alongside their regular army. Ordinary Ukrainians have shown incredible courage and determination. The outcome of the war remains uncertain. However, one thing is clear: this conflict will have lasting consequences for Ukraine, Russia, and the world. The human cost of this war is already immeasurable. The political and economic ramifications will continue to be felt for years to come. The military situation in Ukraine remains fluid. After a year of intense fighting, both sides have sustained heavy losses. Russia initially hoped for a swift victory. They underestimated the strength of the Ukrainian resistance and the resolve of the Ukrainian people. The Russian advance quickly stalled. They were forced to retreat from some areas. Ukraine has been bolstered by military aid from Western countries. They have been able to mount a strong defense. Ukrainian forces have even managed to launch counteroffensives. They have succeeded in retaking some territory. However, Russia still occupies a significant portion of Ukrainian territory. The fighting has been particularly fierce in eastern Ukraine. Russia has concentrated its forces in the Donbas region. This area is home to a large Russian-speaking population. Russia has been providing support to separatists in this region since 2014. Military analysts predict that the conflict will likely continue for the foreseeable future. Neither side seems willing to back down. A negotiated settlement seems unlikely at this point. The conflict has reached a stalemate. It is a war of attrition. While the fighting rages on, diplomatic efforts to end the war have been largely unsuccessful. There have been numerous rounds of negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. However, these talks have failed to produce any breakthroughs. Both sides blame each other for the lack of progress. The international community has condemned Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United Nations General Assembly voted overwhelmingly to demand that Russia withdraw its forces. However, Russia, as a permanent member of the UN Security Council, has veto power. This has prevented the UN from taking any meaningful action to stop the war. Western countries have imposed unprecedented sanctions on Russia. These sanctions have targeted Russia's economy. They have also targeted individuals close to Russian President Vladimir Putin. The sanctions are intended to pressure Russia to end the war. However, their effectiveness is debatable. Some countries, such as China and India, have taken a more neutral stance. They have refrained from condemning Russia's actions. These countries have called for a peaceful resolution to the conflict through dialogue. However, they have not taken any concrete steps to mediate a ceasefire. Despite the bleak outlook, there have been some glimmers of hope. The recent talks between US and Russian officials in Saudi Arabia while preliminary and excluding Ukraine suggest a potential shift in dynamics. The discussions, even if focused on broader issues like a peace settlement, normalizing relations, and financial investments, indicate a willingness to engage at a high level. Secretary of State Rubio's emphasis on potential geopolitical and economic partnerships, and Lavrov's mention of improved mutual understanding, however vague, offer a sliver of optimism. While Russia shows no signs of softening its stance on Ukraine, the very fact that such high-profile meetings are taking place could pave the way for future dialogue. The active involvement of other key players like France, Turkey, and China in seeking avenues for peaceful negotiation further fuels this cautious hope. Macron's planned meeting on Ukraine, Erdogan's offer to host peace talks, and China's expression of support for such initiatives all point towards a growing international desire to find a way out of the impasse. However, the exclusion of Ukraine from these initial discussions casts a shadow over these developments. Any sustainable solution necessitates Ukraine's active participation and consent. The international community must prioritize Ukraine's agency and ensure any future negotiations include Kyiv as an equal partner. Looming over the conflict is the terrifying specter of nuclear war. Russia possesses a vast nuclear arsenal. Putin has repeatedly made veiled threats about using these weapons. He has put his nuclear forces on high alert. This has raised fears of a catastrophic escalation. The use of nuclear weapons would have devastating consequences for Ukraine and the world. It would be an act of unimaginable destruction. The international community has condemned Putin's nuclear rhetoric. Western leaders have warned Russia against taking such a reckless and irresponsible step. The threat of nuclear war is a stark reminder of the high stakes involved in this conflict. It underscores the need for a peaceful resolution. The international community must continue to engage in diplomacy. It must explore all avenues to de-escalate the situation. The risk of miscalculation or accidental escalation remains a constant threat. Open lines of communication between Russia and the West are crucial to prevent misunderstandings. Confidence-building measures and arms control agreements, while challenging in the current climate, are essential to reduce the risks of a nuclear confrontation. The war in Ukraine has had a profound impact on the global economy. It has disrupted supply chains and led to soaring energy and food prices. Russia and Ukraine are major exporters of grain and fertilizer. The conflict has disrupted these exports, causing food shortages and price hikes in many parts of the world. The war has also led to a surge in refugees. Millions of Ukrainians have fled their homes, seeking refuge in neighboring countries such as Poland, Romania, and Moldova. This has put a strain on the resources of these countries and raised concerns about a potential humanitarian crisis. The war has also had a significant impact on the global security landscape. It has led to increased tensions between Russia and the West. NATO has strengthened its military presence in Eastern Europe, and several countries have increased their defense spending. The war has raised fears of a new Cold War. The conflict has underscored the interconnectedness of the global economy and the importance of international cooperation. It has highlighted the need for a rules-based international order and demonstrated the devastating human cost of conflict. The human cost of the war in Ukraine is immeasurable. Thousands of civilians have been killed and many more have been injured. The fighting has destroyed homes, schools, and hospitals, leaving entire cities in ruins. The war has created a humanitarian catastrophe. The war has had a particularly devastating impact on children. Children have been killed and injured in the fighting. Many have been orphaned or separated from their families. The war has disrupted their education and robbed them of their childhoods. The psychological trauma of war will have a lasting impact on an entire generation. The international community has a moral obligation to help the people of Ukraine. We must provide humanitarian assistance to those in need, support the Ukrainian people in their struggle for freedom and democracy, and hold Russia accountable for its actions. The war in Ukraine is a tragedy for all involved. It is a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict and the urgent need for peace. The international community must work together to end the fighting and build a more peaceful and just world. The war in Ukraine has been a brutal reminder of the horrors of 20th century Europe. The images of bombed out cities and fleeing refugees have evoked memories of World War II. The conflict has also highlighted the dangers of nationalism, imperialism, and the suppression of truth. Putin's justification for the invasion, rooted in a distorted view of history and a denial of Ukrainian identity, echoes the propaganda used by totalitarian regimes throughout history. His attempts to rewrite history and suppress dissent within Russia demonstrate the fragility of freedom and the importance of defending democratic values. This conflict serves as a stark warning against complacency. The lessons learned from past atrocities must not be forgotten. The international community must remain vigilant in upholding the principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the peaceful resolution of disputes. A failure to do so risks repeating the mistakes of the past. The echoes of history should serve as a call to action. The world cannot stand idly by as aggression and tyranny rear their ugly heads. We must defend the values of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law, not just in Ukraine, but wherever they are threatened. The Ukrainian people have shown extraordinary courage and resilience in the face of Russian aggression. They have taken up arms to defend their country and shown a fierce determination to resist Russian occupation. Their spirit has inspired the world. This conflict has underscored the importance of freedom and the price that must be paid to defend it. The Ukrainian people understand that freedom is not a gift, it is a right that must be constantly fought for and protected. Their sacrifices should serve as a reminder to us all that freedom is precious and should never be taken for granted. The outcome of the war in Ukraine remains uncertain. However, one thing is clear: the Ukrainian people have demonstrated their unwavering commitment to freedom. They have shown the world that they are willing to fight for their right to determine their own future. Their struggle is a reminder that the fight for freedom is never truly over. The international community must continue to stand with Ukraine. We must provide them with the military, economic, and humanitarian assistance they need to resist Russian aggression. We must hold Russia accountable for its actions. And we must never waver in our support for the Ukrainian people's right to live in a free and democratic society. As we look towards the future, it's essential to understand that the path to peace and stability will not be straightforward. The Ukraine-Russia conflict stands at a critical juncture. The decisions made in the coming months will have lasting implications not only for the involved nations, but for global peace and security. The resilience shown by the Ukrainian people and the international community's response have set the stage for a potential resolution. If you found this video informative, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support enables us to continue providing in-depth analysis of critical global issues. Share your thoughts and suggestions for future topics in the comments below. Together, we can foster understanding and contribute to meaningful dialogue. The future remains unwritten, but with collective effort and unwavering commitment, a brighter, more peaceful world is within our grasp.